You know that feeling, right? Complete and utter burnout. It's way more than just being tired. It's this deep, soul-level exhaustion. But what if the cause isn't what we think it is? Let's take a look at what might really be draining our batteries.
Usually, we imagine burnout is the result of some huge crisis at work, a massive project that blows up or some big dramatic fight. But what if that's not the whole picture? Turns out, the real root of burnout? It's often not one single, catastrophic thing.
Instead, it's the little stuff, the daily paper cuts, right? Those small, nagging annoyances that just stack up day after day after day. It's a much quieter, sneakier kind of problem.
And that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It just doesn't seem to add up. How can these tiny, almost forgettable moments lead to such a massive feeling of being totally wiped out? Let's break down how that actually happens.
Okay, so what exactly are we talking about here? What do these little stressors look like? I'm willing to bet you've experienced them, maybe even today. Let's look at a few really common ones.
First up, the constantly rushed deadline. It's that feeling of always playing catch-up, of having to cut corners just to get something out the door. It creates this low-level hum of anxiety that just never really stops. Or how about this one? Unclear feedback. You pour all your energy into a project, and the response you get is just vague, confusing. So now you're left guessing what they actually want, which just burns up your mental energy and leaves you feeling totally uncertain.
And of course, the ignored message. You send off something important, and you just get radio silence. It leaves you wondering, did they even see this? Does my work matter? And then you have to decide if you should follow up and feel like you're nagging. Any one of these on its own is no big deal, but that's not how it works.
Turns out, these things actually have a name, micro-stressors. And the definition here is perfect. They're small, they're overlooked, and they trigger a stress response. Yeah, that sounds about right. They're these little, subtle hits to our well-being.
And see, this is what makes them so sneaky. A single ignored email feels too small to complain about, right? So we just brush it off. We tell ourselves we're probably overreacting, and so the real issue never gets talked about.
But here is the absolute key. When these micro-stressors happen over and over and over again, they create something called emotional friction. It's like running sandpaper over your resilience. Each tiny little pass just wears you down little by little until you feel completely raw.
So how does this actually build up? Well, it's a pretty clear process. It starts with just one thing, a single micro-stress, like a rush deadline. But then it happens again and again until it becomes a pattern. That repeating pattern builds up that emotional friction, just draining your tank. And the end result? Cumulative burnout. It's not a sudden breakdown, it's a slow burn. If you remember one thing, let it be this. Microstress adds up. Every single small moment matters, because they don't just vanish, they accumulate. Okay, so we get the problem. We see how these tiny little things can snowball into total burnout. The obvious next question is, what in the world can we do about it? How do you break a cycle that's made of all these nearly invisible pieces?
The solution actually starts with a really simple idea. You can't fix what you can't see. The whole power of microstress is that it's hidden. So step one is to drag it out into the light.
And this is often where a champion comes in. Now, this isn't some formal job title. A champion can be anyone, a coworker, a manager, a friend at work, who's just aware enough to spot these patterns and brave enough to actually talk about them.
So what does a champion actually do? It's surprisingly simple. First, they just notice the small things, like, hey, meeting invites always seem to come in at the last second. Then they name that pattern out loud. They might say, I've noticed we often get feedback right before a deadline, which really puts the team under pressure. Can we talk about that? And finally, they work with everyone to try and find a better way.
Honestly, just giving a name to the pattern, saying the quiet part out loud is huge. It validates what everyone else is feeling, and it turns this internal, personal frustration into a shared problem that we can actually solve together.
But here's the thing. You don't have to sit around and wait for a champion to appear. You can be one, for yourself and for your team. It all starts by just paying attention to your own emotional friction and asking, what small repeating thing is causing this?
So, I'll leave you with this question to think about. Just reflect on your own work week. What's that one small stressor that pops up over and over again? Because just naming it for yourself, that's the first step. And that simple act could be the very beginning of breaking your own cycle of burnout.